Well, we're here because Dominic Fike gave me a sunburn. Hey, what's up, you guys? It's Vega. I know, it's been a long time. If you're familiar with my face, it's been a couple years. We're not here to talk about that, though. We're here to talk about Dominic Fike. His sophomore album, Sunburn, has brought me out of the shadows and into the sun. The Florida sun, to be exact. I actually have no idea what Florida feels like, never been there. Heard it's like the swamp. But this album feels so much like what I imagine a Florida summer sounds like. Sounds like wet hair, salty skin, windows down, speeding down the Florida highways. I don't even know if they call them highways there, but hey. This isn't going to be like what my typical content is. It's not going to be me reacting to the album. I've already listened. So it's going to be more of kind of like my gleanings from the album, basically, like how I feel about it, kind of less review, more like discussion. We're going to start with the singles. I really tried not to participate in single listening. That's not really how I listen to albums anymore, because I feel like you lose so much when you've heard so much of an album. But Dancing in the Courthouse and Mama's Boy were two that I listened to. Mona Lisa, I really wanted to, but I was like, I have to wait. So with Dancing in the Courthouse, it was one of those where instantly I was like, I love this. It makes me want to dance. It makes me want to get up, flail my arms around, like just have a good time. And it had that like summery vibe. Mama's Boy, on the other hand, I'm not gonna lie, I was like, I'm gonna stick beside him. I don't know what he's doing. I don't know what direction he's going in with this album, but I'm gonna stick beside him for it. And he did post on Instagram about how it's kind of like, he said something like, maybe a grower, not a shower. And I was like, okay, it was totally a grower for me. It might have been a shower for other people, who knows. But it was one of those where I was like, what is this? But after the first few times, I was like, wait, I'm like getting it. And then listening to it with the album to make it more kind of cohesive, I was like, wait a minute. I was like, I see what he's doing here. And we know, I like Dominic when he does like the rock music stuff. I like the fact that this is very rock inspired. It's very like guitar heavy. Rapper Fike. We know how I feel about him. If you've been here before, you know how I feel about Rapper Fike. And to bring that up, he really starts the album and paints that Florida picture for us. Paints us that summer with How Much Is Weed. And then the rap comes and I'm just full body goosebumps. Like, he said, shit went left, I got arrested. Like, the whole thing just really, oof. That one took me for a ride, let me tell you. I was like, I'm in, I'm locked in, I'm invested, I am here. And then we get Ant Pile right after, which is like this incredible just rock, high school relationship, like sweet kind of experience. And I just, like I said, completely locked in. But I've gotten way far ahead of myself. I do want to read the Instagram post that he made when he dropped the album. And this really, like, this hit with me, this Instagram post he made. He said, Sunburn is out. This album really tore me apart. Most of the songs I made in a house I rented in Studio City. I lived alone with no furniture, just a studio. Half a bed and a very whole addiction. But I cleaned up and finished these songs with some very dear friends, those who I need not name. They're in the fucking credits. We closed a chapter at the very least. This is a piece of time we recorded and dressed up pretty as we could. If you find a song on here that you needed today, then I did my small, stupid little job. I am so angry and grateful and sorry and relieved right now. But maybe that's okay. Until next time, crowd. And when you listen to the album, you really, like, see the way these things come out for him. To me, it feels like he's really looking at every choice he's made, and he's like, what the fuck? And it's one of those things where he's, like, coming to terms with, like, what he's done, or, like, what his life experiences have led to, and how, like, fame has affected the way that he interacts with the world. And also just the songs about like the more deep, more morose, more sad stuff, like coming to terms with growing up and things not being quite as you expect, like when 4x4 really tears down all the walls of these kind of storybook situations we think we're gonna live in, and it turns it into this like you build your own life story situation, and you have to kind of come out of that and realize that you have to let go of expectation to be able to live and grow up, and nothing's gonna be quite that fairy tale experience like you think it is. Or in Dark, where he looks back with his mother and he looks back about how his memory works, and he remembers, oh, when Alex had no front teeth, and he remembers these parts of his childhood or these parts of his like adolescence that were really difficult. And that resonated with me a lot, because I am someone who, like, I have very complex relationships with my family, as, you know, most people probably do. And I also just have, like, a very complex kind of network with my own memory. I don't really know how else to explain it, but it's one of those things where a lot of what I remember is not the good stuff. Like, I don't have these, like, easy, fun childhood memories that I remember that I can come back to. So a lot of it is hard, and a lot of it is, you know, ingrained in these complicated connections and relationships that I have with my family. So this album really, like, sat with me because it gave me the chance to really look at those parts of my relationships and myself where I'm like, oh shit, like, I really understand what he's saying, and I'm really with him in this experience of, like, kind of unpacking that and letting go of expectation and just letting myself, like, be a person. And a lot of, like, the themes of addiction, I don't personally deal with that, like, me myself, so I don't understand his own personal experience, obviously, and I'll never, like, be in his head or anything like that. But I, like, my bloodline has a history with addiction, so I've been in the throes of other people's addiction, and the way that he talks about himself kind of reminds me of the way that other people in my life may have perceived themselves. Like, when he's talking about his mother and his relationships, and he's like, I cheat on my favorite bitch, and he's talking about I became who my mama hates. I became my dad, and just, like, becoming this person he doesn't recognize, and kind of watching what I interpret as people becoming someone they don't recognize. So, like, for me, it was healing to kind of look at his experience and be able to also understand, as someone who had a really strange and not cookie cutter childhood and dealt with a lot of addicts and is, like, still actively dealing with a lot of addicts, to look at that and be able to, like, kind of see him, and then, like, have him in turn see me with the lyrics, you know? And that was like, I really applaud him for his vulnerability, because I can only, like, I can't even understand how difficult it is to face yourself and then release all the ways you faced yourself to the rest of the world. And once again, he just, like, really paints the whole idea of losing your youth. And it's, like, realizing that your youth isn't what you thought it was gonna be. That it's not this, like, picturesque thing necessarily. At least that's my interpretation. Like I said, I can only know how he thinks by the interviews, by the music, but for me it really did seem like he was looking into those things with the slower songs, or looking back at relationships like in Pastor Child, where it's like things were easy, but he was with this girl who was from a completely different upbringing as him, and she couldn't even, like, talk on the phone after a certain time, you know, things like that. Just looking back at being young and how different being young was, and doubling back to Mona Lisa and, like, the more upbeat songs on the album. Once again, it was really hard for me not to listen to Mona Lisa, because Kenny Beats directed, and if you've been here before, if you are familiar with this channel at all, you know I love Kenny Beats. And, you know, just knowing that that song was out there, I was like, fuck, I would really like to listen to it. But I waited, and it, like, became one of my favorite songs on the album. I think it's just so fun, and the juxtaposition of the actual lyrics when you listen and the mood of the song, mwah, He really did that shit. Because me, I'm like, oh yeah, this is great. And then I'm actually listening and I'm like, oh, he's kind of talking shit a little bit. Like, but I love Mona Lisa. And getting more into those faster, more upbeat songs like Bodies, like Frisky. Speaking of Frisky, maybe I have an unpopular opinion, but I miss the OG version that they dropped on Spotify. That was, I think, a mistake, Dom said. I love that verse. And don't get me wrong, I like the updated version, and that's the version that I heard live. So when he does the show, he uses that verse. The verse that was re-added onto Spotify and replaced with the old one. And I think it freshened up the set, like, when there was a different verse. But also, his whole life thing is, like, just an experience, because you never really know what you're gonna get. You think you know what the songs sound like until he does it live. Like, the updated version of Why. Yeah. Okay, I'm getting ahead of myself, but now, like, we might as well just get into it. The live experience of this album and this tour is, like, crazy. The energy. I went to the second show on tour, the Pittsburgh date, and oh my god, that man knows what he is doing. He knows how to capture a crowd. He came out, big t-shirt, gray sweatpants, and he was just like, all right, let's go. And he knows how to talk to the crowd, but he also knows how to make these songs a fully different experience from what you're expecting. Because you have an expectation when you listen to an album, like, okay, I'll hear this live, and it's gonna sound if not the same, it'll sound really, really similar. But that is not what he does. He changes up these songs where, like, the tempo's different, or he's just delivering the lyrics differently, or he's adding a completely new verse, taking something out and replacing it with, like, something ad-libbed, something seemingly improvised, or he's using, like, a verse from a different song by a different group altogether. And his live experience is just so... Also, that man should not ever have a corded mic. I just want to say that. He was struggling with the corded mic. I think it added to the ambiance of, like, the stage setup. But he was having the time of his life with that fucking cord. And it was just, like, very funny to me. But getting back into the album itself, I want to talk about Think Fast, and I think this is where we'll end it, because, you know, the more upbeat songs, like I was talking about before, I love them. They have, like, such raw, nice, like, up-tempo energy, and they bring that more, like, they bring up those more morose songs, the more slow-tempoed, sadder songs. But Think Fast. That one really, like, the guitar on it, that we haven't even talked about, like, production and instrumentation. I've found something new every single time I've listened to the album. I would like to thank everyone for really dealing with my bouncing off the walls ADHD 900 directions brain right now, if you've stuck around this long. But yeah, the instrumentation, like, I find something different every time. I find these little bits in the production where there are, like, ad-libs, or, like, parts where he's, like, you know, like, I'm really picking them apart and hearing these, like, higher register, lower register moments, like, deeper in the production. But Think Fast specifically, the guitar on that song is phenomenal. I love that he has a fucking Weezer feature. That is incredible. But what I really want to talk about is when we hear him juxtapose when he says, this place was bad for me, and to me this place was everything, when he's talking about kind of, like, his career and, like, where he's at, like, physically living. And for me, that one hit because it's like, I have moved away from my hometown and I'm actually about to move back. So it's one of those things where he says, this place is bad for me, and I personally think back to living in Indiana, or the really hard parts of living here in Pittsburgh while I've been here, because I've been here for a while. And it's like, yeah, this place was bad for me, but also not so much with Indiana in my past tense, but going into my present and my future tense. like this place to me was everything. And looking at my experience here in Pittsburgh and being like, this place really has made me who I am, and being able to see how he sees that within himself, and just like to be able to relate to that experience, like I feel grateful for. I don't know how else to explain it. Like to be able to look at someone else and kind of see them as this mirror that's looking back at you. Like, hey, I've had this experience too. It feels nice to have someone put words to it, because I'm not a singer. I'm not like an artist in that degree. I am a writer. I am a poet. Like, and that's even like very much me self-titling myself. But I'm not eloquent when I say the words aloud, you know? Like, when I'm writing them down, it's a lot easier. But to perform them and to, like, put them into this language that Dominic speaks, I feel like he really pulled something out of me, and I was like, I relate to this so much. Like, I recently posted it on my Instagram story with, this place to me was everything, because I was thinking back on my experience living here in Pittsburgh, and I was like, this place really has been everything to me. It's turned me into an adult. It's torn me down. It's put me back together. It's like made me so many different people to turn me into who I am now. So it's like I understand that experience so much, and I'm glad and I'm grateful that he also has words to really make that experience for me, where I can listen to a song and go, holy shit, like I felt that. We're gonna end it here. I feel like I've said all I've had to say. I'm really, really, really proud of him for this album. He was on a journey, and it's like I will never understand personally what he went through, but he did a really good job of putting it on paper and turning it into this really, really incredible album. So I hope it was cathartic for him, and I hope it was something that helped to heal him, and I'm proud of what he's done. That'll be it from me for now. I don't know if I'm back. I don't want to say I'm back. Things will look different if I do start uploading again. I don't want to do the format I was doing previously, so I absolutely will not be doing like physical in-person reactions. I feel like I lose the music when I do things like that. And if you've made it this far, really, like, thank you so much. And if you're still subbed and you're seeing my face for the first time in 2 years, thanks for sticking around. I didn't think I'd be back. So thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. Who knows? You might see another upload eventually. It's not going to be weekly. It might not even be monthly. I got a lot going on. But thank you so much, and peace out.